Hello, I'm Jim Miller. I'm here with Ron Bowers and Henry House. The FlipSide starts right now. Welcome to the show. Well, Washington County has a rich history with respect to aviation, and we have a group in town that is it's their mission to preserve some or as much as they can of that history. I'd like to welcome John Seaburn. John is president of the Hagerstown Aviation Museum. John, tell us about the museum.
Well, as a lot of people know in this community, I mean, aviation's been a big part of the community for actually 100 years now.
Wow.
From 1916 to 84, airplanes were built in Hagerstown. And we're finding a lot more people don't know that. So therefore, that's the reason why we have a museum. We even had people come out to the airport and, well, this is the sad part, they don't even know we have an airport. So when we have our events, they come out, we educate them about the airport, aviation history in Hagerstown, and through all that, we've been collecting all the airplanes that were built in Hagerstown from the oldest one is 1919 up through the A-10, which will someday we'll get an A-10.
I was going to say, you have an A-10?
Not yet. They tell me when they're done using the A-10 that we can have one for the museum.
Interesting.
So, but we're happy that they're still usable and in need. Not in need, I guess, but you know what I'm saying.
They're still usable. That's a good thing.
Yeah. So anyway, so we have about 22 different aircraft right now. We have a large archives of photos and old film footage and artifacts and things, and so that's the Hagerstown Aviation Museum.
Cool. Henry?
John, how did you get involved with the Aviation Museum? Were you part of the founding group for this, or?
Well, yes, I guess my own interest. My grandfather had worked at Fairchild for many years, and then as I was growing up, I heard all the Fairchild stories about the building of airplanes, and then 1995, the airport had a big Fairchild homecoming air show. And they brought back all the old Fairchild planes that were still flying. A lot of the older folks who had worked at Fairchild came back, including Dick Henson and Alan Klopper and a lot of other folks. I had a whole bunch of old Fairchild films. Another friend of mine, Curtis Myers, had photos. Kent Mitchell had models, other things. So we set up a hangar as kind of a little museum. And people would walk through and they were thinking, they would say, oh, this must be the museum. And we all looked at each other like, oh, well, no, it isn't. Here's an idea. Yes. So that was 1995. 96 we became the Hagerstown Aviation Heritage Museum, and it was really neat thing because we had Dick Henson who would tell stories of the old days at the airport and being a test pilot at Fairchild and all those good things. So about 10 years later, we kind of regrouped, got our first airplane, the Fairchild C-82 flying boxcar. And that really started our airplane collecting from that point on. And so we have enough now, you could fill a 100,000 square foot museum. Okay. That's how many planes and things that we have. So.
Now, with that, how do you source the airplanes for your displays? How do you fund to get those airplanes on display?
Well, the I'll say not challenging part has been actually finding the airplanes over the years, then acquiring them either through donation or we have a fundraiser. Like this 82, we had to go to an auction in Wyoming and bid on it. It was the last one that could fly and that we could ever get home to Hagerstown. So it's either through donation of a plane or donors giving money to acquire a plane. We've had some people with, like the Fairchild PT-19, the trainer in World War II that they built here. They tried to sell their plane or whatever, and they found out about us, and then they said, well, we want our plane to come home to Hagerstown. So over the years, that's sort of how it kept growing. And the really neat thing is whenever we have our events out at the airport, we have families that come through with their kids, and they get up in the old airplanes, and they're kind of knocking on the side and feeling the rivets, and they're telling their kids, it's like, well, Grandma and Grandpa helped to build this airplane. And it's those kind of moments that remind us, okay, this is why we're doing this. Because it's not just an airplane collection, it's a sort of a community's heritage, and a family heritage even in this community. And so that keeps us going.
I think your grandfather worked at Fairchild up through 1966. Is there another group of historians in this community any larger than aviation? I don't, following aviation for a long period of time, I don't know one other group that's got the experience, the expertise to bring back what we've had here since 1916. You know, that started, well, back then, the Maryland Theater was born in, you know, built in 1915, and now with aviation. What are you going to do with it? It seems like we're missing a major part. I'm kind of upset that county government, the college, and other groups aren't putting more emphasis on working with NASA, working with the different, you know, Sierra Nevada, with you, with Royal Air and other people. What is the problem? What's the holdup?
I don't know that there's a problem, but I think you're right, Ron. We're getting close to that point where all these different groups can kind of come together and create a place. We probably have 20 different plans over the years for the ultimate, you know, place for a home for the museum. Currently, we're at maybe 3 ideas, but I think it'll happen. I mean, it's things are even the past several months have been kind of happening faster and faster in all the activities that we're doing.
So what you're saying, there's not a problem, they're ready, but they all should come together.
That would be wonderful.
You know, we proposed, I've talked to John before about it, that the county and the state should buy the old Fairchild building, 85 to 100,000 square feet of that. The best of it should be preserved, the rest of it torn down, and have right in the middle of a major accessory use to aircraft would be this beautiful museum on part of the old Fairchild building. But at what point do you do that? You've raised so much money to make all of this happen. Is there an ending point? Is there a point that the guys just get tired of not getting local support from government?
Well, it has been pretty much privately supported this whole time. We have funding from like the Mary Kay Bowman Trust, the Delaplane Foundation out of Frederick, and some other ones who annually they give us so much for different projects and things. But the project you're talking about, I mean, that's a major community.
6 to 9 million.
It'd be like building the Maryland Theater almost. so it's and it could be I mean, a major tourist attraction. Have a visitor center right off 81.
Did you ever talk to the CVB about a percentage of the room tax coming directly into it?
Well, that's a part,
all the time?
Part of the pie, yes. And also the other part of this, I mean, the place would be so big that you'd have an event center also inside. And most aviation museums have big hangars. They push out a couple airplanes, and they have a 30,000 square foot event center. They have theme parties or theme things, or even like trade shows, that type of thing. So there are a lot of different pieces to the puzzle, and well, actually, this is a good place to ask the community too. And if anybody out there would like to be part of creating a home for the Hagerstown Aviation Museum, we are more than welcome to talk with them and see what we can do together. So we're to that point now, I think.
Where can they get information? Is there a website that they can go to, and can you share that with us?
Yeah, HagerstownAviationMuseum.org is the website.
HagerstownAviationMuseum.org.
And then also, we do a lot on Facebook now, especially with our events. We're posting our events coming up. Our next event is actually Father's Day on June 16, coming up in a couple of weeks here. And that's normally a really big event. And during that event, we also offer rides in our World War II PT-19 trainers, and that's very popular. And all the planes are open, so you can walk through and get up in the cockpits and all that good stuff. But and that's why we hold events, because we don't have a place open to the public. We do about 6 or 7 events about once a month over the warm season.
Wow.
And the other good thing is it helps promote the airport too. And we're very grateful for the airport and the management and the county and everybody, because they've helped all these years to kind of provide space for us at the airport. And and even the other businesses, like Plane Care is a business on the airport that does airplane maintenance, and they're donating a hangar that we have 5 of our small planes in that hangar. And then we have a couple T hangars and some other things. So we're kind of scattered around the airport right now, but that doesn't keep us from having events, and we also do some bus tours with some school groups and senior citizens groups, those kind of things, like a scheduled tour. So that works out pretty good.
So you mentioned the airport, and one of the things that we've talked about often on this program, and this is tangential to the museum discussion, but the airport is an economic driver
Right.
continuing, because again, we have had a rich heritage, and that heritage, in my view, could continue and is continuing. What are your thoughts on the airport as an economic driver for our county?
Well, it's a major, just what you're saying. I mean, it has been for many, many years.
The players have changed.
The players have changed, and I mean, at one time, I mean, Fairchild was the largest employer in the whole region here, and there were like 10,000 people had worked there back in the 1950s. You know, when that started slowing down, then Mack Truck came along, and so it sort of, you know, changed hands over the years. But I think there's always been this sort of a lure. There's something with aviation and flying and airplanes that. I don't want to say they're magical, but in the old days they were very magical. We kind of take them for granted now. But the part of preserving the history and using that to, you know, inspire the next generation. We're really good friends with the PIA, with the maintenance school, and we feel like you were saying, Ron. There's kind of a missing piece. We have the Discovery Station downtown, which is wonderful for the younger kids. And they have a whole STEM program now and all that. We have PIA, we have the college, we have, you know, trade schools for like after you're out of high school. But there's a gap in the middle for like middle and high school kids that we think the Aviation Museum could play a part, sort of like an aviation high school, where you have like the Barbara Ingram School for the Arts. You could have an aviation high school for aviation and aerospace and things like that. So those are all kind of pieces to the puzzle that eventually we could put that together.
STEM. That's STEM if I ever heard it, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow, interesting. Well, if we can we keep you around for another segment?
Yeah.
We're going to take a break and pay some bills, but stay with us. John Seaburn and the FlipSide will be back in 3 minutes. Back. Once again, we're happy to welcome John Seaburn from the Hagerstown Aviation Museum. So tell me about the partnership with Discovery Station. Let's talk about that one for a second.
Well, in 2005, when they opened, Marie Byers invited us to come in, and we didn't have a place to display a lot of the things we had, the smaller things. So she invited us to come in, and we fixed up one of the rooms upstairs in Discovery Station as the Aviation Museum exhibit at that time. And that worked out really well for a lot of years.
There was a Cessna, or at least the front end of one, right?
Yeah, Cessna 150 with the tail cut off.
Yeah.
And apparently the kids still love it.
Oh, they do.
Getting in and
absolutely.
pretending they're flying.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then as they got new exhibits and expanded things, the aviation part kind of got smaller and smaller, but they still have the plane and some other exhibits, which is nice. So Discovery Station really kind of helped get us going, you know, 15 years ago now almost.
Okay, and you had some videos running there too, so talk about that piece of it with the multimedia pieces.
Well, that's an interesting story, Jim, being in video production. I had a video company called Vintage Video Productions, and so Curtis Myers is a good friend. He's on the board. He's kind of our historian. He wrote the script for the documentary that we did called Hagerstown Remembering Our Aviation Heritage. And the reason we did that about 2004, the museum was kind of slow. It was kind of in a slump. And we thought, well, if we never have a museum, we'll make a documentary, we'll put it out there, and the story's told, and we can go on about our business. So we did the documentary, premiered it in the old theater here in town, across from the Maryland, it was Faith Chapel at the time.
Right.
And
the old Colonial.
The old Colonial. And we had 2 showings that day, and the first showing, the place was packed with people in wheelchairs, walkers, canes, who were old Fairchild folks. And as they were coming out of the theater, they all said, "Oh, we need a museum. We need a museum." They were, you know, Curtis and I were almost to the point of just giving up on the museum.
Right.
So So we do the documentaries. That kind of reignited the interest, and sort of the power of video too. I mean, it was sort of a 90-minute commercial on why we need a museum. So, so that kind of reignited the interest, and then it actually ended up on MPT several times, and so the story got told a little broader than just locally. But then we had some books that also came along with that. So we haven't had time recently to do any updates on any of that, but all the information's still good in the documentary and the books.
History doesn't change much, right?
Right.
So I know we in Hagerstown we started off back in 1916, I think, with some airplanes being built in the city. You have a model from 1919?
Yes.
Okay.
Giuseppe Blanca was an airplane designer, builder, and flyer back in like 1910, 1911. Came over from Italy, and there was a company called the Maryland Press Steel Company out on Pope Avenue. The building's still standing there, the old Pope building. And they hired Giuseppe Blanca to design a trainer plane for World War I. And this was 1916, and so he designed this little teeny biplane, and today it looks like a little home-built plane. It's so small. And well, they ended up only building like 2 of these, and the World War I ended. The company went out of the airplane business, so they sold off everything. And from our accounts, like nothing existed from that time until there was a guy in Colorado who, this is how do you acquire these things? A guy in Colorado sent us an email. He says, I have a Blanca CE in my hangar. And we're thinking, well, no, you must be mistaken. He sent us a picture. Well, it was the whole fuselage of one of these airplanes built in Hagerstown. And to us, the Blanca is sort of our Wright brothers plane of Hagerstown. Okay. It's what got the industry going, and so anyway, so we ended up getting this fuselage and an engine, a propeller, and some other parts that came along with this plane. And eventually we're going to build a full-scale replica of that as our first airplane in Hagerstown. But then it went from Blanca, and then Lou Reisner worked for Blanca, and then he and Kreider started Kreider-Reisner Aircraft in the 1920s in Hagerstown. And then 1930, Sherman Fairchild came along. He liked the airplanes they were building, so he bought interest in the company, and then that's how Sherman Fairchild got here, and then that was up through '84 then, the Fairchild name was here.
So what is your dream plane to add into your collection, aside from the A-10?
Well, the A-10's, I'll tell you, the A-10's the one that most people ask about. Right. And it's wonderful when we have our wings and wheels, and the A-10s fly up from Martin State from the Air National Guard, and people get to see the A-10s here. And what's neat, where they park, the old factory is behind them, so it makes a neat kind of photo op for what came out of the factory. But I don't know, that's a good question. It's sort of, I think we've collected almost all the major, one of each of the major airplanes. Okay. So, and that's where, like you were saying, Ron, like the time has come now that we have like 22 planes, and we have enough there to fill a large space. What's interesting, we have friends at the National Air and Space Museum. Tom Crouch is the curator down there. They hardly have any Fairchild planes, and he said, "Well, you guys are the Fairchild Museum in Hagerstown, and we'll send people up to you once you get a place." So.
Wow, there's economic driving for you too.
Well, we're also between the Air and Space Museum and Dayton, which is the Air Force Museum, and we get a lot of people stopping in at the airport who are driving through, going to different aviation museums, looking for the Hagerstown Aviation Museum. So they pull up to the gate at Plane Care, which is our mailing address. Right. So they Google that, show up at this gate. It's like, well, where's the museum? So, which is encouraging in one way, but discouraging, disappointing for the visitor who comes off the interstate looking for the museum. So we know there's a demand, and we intentionally try not to advertise "come to the museum," just for that fact. And we really try to promote our events. And the way we promote our events, we have a card. So this is our event card, and you can pick these up at the visitor center downtown, at the terminal at the airport, and then on the back of the card it has all of our event dates. Okay. And also Wings and Wheels, and the EAA does a Young Eagles pancake breakfast also at the airport, and we open up for that too. So there are all kinds of events at the airport going on, and yeah, but look for this when you're at the visitor center or terminal.
And Henry, it'll be Father's Day. Go out to the airport, get in that P-19. That P-19 was built the year I was born, 1943. And Dave Ryder, rest his soul, Took me on the ride last year. We went up in that. You know, it's an open cockpit, and that is, he could fly that thing.
Yeah, Dave loved flying that.
Yes, and it was something I'll never forget. But how are you going to bring all of your people, the expertise? You've talked about the Alan Kloppers, the Kent Mitchells. Our man T-Blow was big, I think, years ago in engineering. And a lot of those people, then that history is all here. How can that all be captured? You talk about this plane space, however many planes you have. We have space in this county today that can be put in, and it's sitting there almost vacant. And there's nobody pushing elected officials in the state, the feds. I do know there has been a movement to move the tower over onto the Ryder Jet because there was a corner made there, but we don't have that interest from elected officials. I was hoping maybe Randy Wagner would take that ball by the horn, and he got a lot of things on the go because he flies, and hopefully he can help head up something. With the college, I really think HCC should be involved in. So how do you see it all coming out with you know, Henson Field and that all coming together?
Well, I think right at this moment, our next step, Ron, is finding the people to help kind of wrap our arms around that and get a plan put together. And we already have a PowerPoint with all the pretty pictures and everything, but that's kind of where we're at right now. And then, just like you're saying, then approach, you know, all those folks and hopefully get them on board and help make it happen.
Talk about Dave Ryder.
Dave was a friend. He, I say, probably built half of the airport, the hangars, the buildings, runways, restaurant, FBO there. What I saw in Dave, he was passionate about flying, aviation, and it was great when he was flying our PT-19 and giving people rides. You could just see how much he enjoyed, like sharing his love of aviation with the people on the ride, and that was a great shock when we heard he died. But yeah, Dave will be missed, and so.
He was that pioneer. He just finished a building. Of course, he was in a partner with it. He's built several buildings. He built PIA, built all, 5 or 7 buildings for Sierra Nevada. He's renovated a lot of the buildings. Of course, that money's all what he put out. He didn't own 1 square inch of land. So he just built the building, and those buildings are leased. So it's going to be something that we need to push, and people that know it before they all pass away, this thing's got to be brought to fruition.
I agree.
Well, it's true. A lot of our members, over the years, as we go through our membership list, we have to start deleting off. I mean, a lot of names of people who we knew worked for Fairchild, had some personal connection. And it's sad in that way, but it's just reality. But the neat thing is that the sort of the children of those folks, and even if they didn't work at Fairchild, they have an interest in aviation. They have an interest in airplanes, and that's what brings them out. When we have our events, it's kind of interesting because most of our events is about 10% regular people who come out. It's probably 90% different people come out to every event, which always surprises us. You'd think there'd be more of the same people. So I don't know what that tells us, but that's a good thing.
Most interesting, well, there's a lot of things interesting that you said tonight, but the one that really piques my interest from an economic standpoint and from a tourism standpoint is the fact that we're between these 2 locations, and the fact that the Smithsonian is saying, you want to know about Fairchild aircraft, go here.
To Hagerstown, yeah.
I mean, that's pretty significant.
Yeah.
There was a wing of Smithsonian talked about in Hagerstown at one time.
I think before they built the Udvar Hazy Center,
yes.
As my understanding, I wasn't around or involved, but the old Fairchild building could have been that wing of the Air and Space Museum at one time. And so.
John, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You have great information, and we hope you'll come back when you have great news to report.
Have some more news. Well, I appreciate the opportunity.
Give us the website one more time.
It's HagerstownAviationMuseum.org, or just look us up on Facebook under that same name. pick up an event brochure. That'll get you out to the airport on the right dates, so you aren't just wondering.
When's your truck going to be chanced off? When's that happening?
That's our last open airplane afternoon. That's October 20th. We're having a Ford F-150 raffle as a fundraiser, and so the tickets we sell those online on the website, on Facebook, and at our events.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. Up next on the flip side, former Congressman John Delaney has a multi-trillion-dollar carbon footprint reduction plan. We'll talk about that when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back. Well, John Delaney, former congressman for our district, has a multi-trillion-dollar carbon reduction plan. Ron, is this real?
I think it's realistic in John's mind. I think it's realistic to make an approach how to reduce carbon, how the tax breaks can help big business, but it's going to be a tax on those people that are violators of it.
It's a pay for play.
And it's just like back in the day to get rid of cigarettes. What did you have to do to get rid of cigarettes? You worked and you worked for years and years and years, and there was different ways. People found jobs. The tobacco industry wound up doing other things, and what do we got today? Tobacco is now what? Cannabis almost.
Well,
so
one of the key elements of this is to tax the polluters, and then, and this is a quote from the article I read, redistribute the funds to the general population. But I don't think, reading a little more deep into the article, I don't think that it's going to be redistributed to the general population. I think there are some specific things that he's looking to do with that, and that's fund new technologies that are green. Is that true?
yes. That's.
Go ahead.
No, I was yielding to Henry there.
Well, thank you, Ron.
Yeah.
I don't think you can be a Democratic presidential candidate without coming up with some type of Green New Deal or for carbon reduction plan, something to try to align us closer with the Paris Accord. The premise is really, and Ron alluded to it, is tax, and then as a government, we'll find a better way to reinvest that money to find alternatives on how to spend that money.
I'm from the government. I'm here to help.
Yes, and whenever they come knocking on your door, they're not here to help.
But as a community, we're always knocking on the door for the governor and everybody to give us money.
Yes,
that never stops.
It is. You're right.
And that's not from the little person down on the street. That's from the business community.
I couldn't agree.
And then the business community is the same community raises Cain about it.
Well, that's good. That's what they're supposed to do. Double standard. That's
Double standard. Well, it works.
All right, Henry. So one of his provisions is to end federal subsidies for oil and gas companies. What do you think about that idea?
Well, if we're going to end the tax subsidies for them, then we need to look at all federal subsidies that we're putting out there. Okay.
You mean like to the farmers?
Possibly to the farmers. Possibly maybe feathering your cap, the ones that go to the 501c3 organizations and the other nonprofits.
You mean all of those that are tax-free?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you're going to analyze something, let's open the entire can of worms and analyze it. Should we be subsidizing oil exploration? Should we be subsidizing these, companies that are, drilling? I don't see, they're making a lot of profit these days. I don't really see where we are benefiting from giving them tax subsidies.
I like what you just said. Expand on that just a little bit.
Expand on it?
Yeah.
Well, a free market involves us as a society saying what we're going to do. Why do we need the government to support industries? They should be able to support themselves. I go back.
And clearly, the oil and gas industry has proven that they can support themselves.
Record profits for how many years?
Right, exactly.
Okay, and they're doing explorations in how many different countries across the world?
The boys at Exxon know how to turn a buck, right?
Yes, and I think Mr. Tillerson, aside from his not being able to get along with President Trump, I think he did pretty good in his professional career.
All right, Ron, what say you about subsidies?
There's a lot I might think, well, look at it with the tariffs issue right now and subsidizing the farmers in the Midwest. We're all going to get taxed. Prices are going up, so it's a hidden tax that the current administration is placing on the American people that you don't see as a tax, but it's a tax.
But it's not just current administration. Every administration has some type of subsidy, some type of.
Oh, but totally agree.
Okay, well, it doesn't matter whether you have a D or an R beside your name. There's been, favored things, and I understand why President Trump is doing what he's doing for the farmers. But we're talking about the former Congressman Delaney's proposal here, and all of them have these ideas that they think there's going. Let free market, we've subsidized a lot of the alternative energy industry over the last 50 years. Where are we with nuclear technology?
So then you ought to agree with his tax on those violators of carbon emissions.
No, I don't. I think society
That's not a subsidy?
I think society is going to dictate that.
Yeah, but it's not a subsidy.
Well, but okay. Let me play devil's advocate on that for a minute, because I don't support giving money. I don't support giving money to try to build technologies that are just not ready to be built. And I think in President Obama's administration, we tried to do that. Clean coal is, what is that? What does that mean? I don't know.
The coal industry is far stronger today and far cleaner as an operating standard than what we were 30, 40 years ago.
That's fine. My point is this: there's a point at which you can really take off and develop something and get it. There's that drop-off point where if you invest funds, you're going to get to the end goal. But there's a point up here where investing funds may get you nowhere.
Right.
There has to be a natural evolution. And I don't have a problem necessarily taxing the polluters. I do have a problem because the investment that he wants to make specifically in what he calls these carbon capture technologies.
Right.
So I know at plants, electric plants, they capture carbon. They capture carbon dioxide. If you go up to Cumberland at that plant up there, you'll see truck after truck rolling out of there with carbon dioxide in it. Is that a technology that's ready? Are we ready to develop that at that level?
Well, you say we have trucks hauling away carbon dioxide. Why can't we pipeline that, to a better distribution system instead of having trucks going over and wearing and tearing the highway? Why not, be creative? We need to go back to like when NASA was first proposed, and the leaps and bounds that we did in technology back then. We've tried to replicate that with alternative fuels, and have we been successful with it?
No.
Okay. Have we tried to support it too long? Solyndra, the money that was put behind that, okay, that was a boondoggle. People can say what they want, but did we gain anything from it? So where are we today with alternative technologies for ways we can power?
Well, you gain
why don't we have a better source of, well, if you have solar panels on your house, why can't we generate more than simple revenue? Okay, it's a push back into the grid, and we still have to buy electricity. Why are we putting restrictions on? Some states have restrictions on capturing your rainwater that you can repurpose out in your yard or even reuse within your house. Why don't we have more eco-friendly technologies that aren't a burden on us?
As long as you allow cheap energy, it's not going to pay for itself.
Yeah, and that's the point.
Right.
That's the point. And my point is, to that point, if we take away the subsidies, do you think the oil companies are just going to let that profit go away? No. What are they going to do?
Raise the price.
Raise the price. And that, in my view, is the economic driver that could help fund and help push some of these technologies to the point where they're successful.
Why don't he do it?
Well, Congressman Delaney wants to do it.
Well, maybe the idea might be, maybe it's time for the idea.
I think there are parts of his plan that I don't like, but there are parts of it that I think make sense.
When I first looked at it, I didn't like any of it.
Now you like it.
Now there's some of it I do.
Right, because I've been convincing you.
Well, but we're talking about it.
Right.
I read it one way, and you pointed out a couple of good points.
Henry, last word.
Well, I think this is John Delaney's attempt to get show up as a blip on the radar. I don't think it's going anywhere. It's just like AOC's proposal, it's good for a discussion point. I think collectively, as a nation, we need to find a better way to.
I may be wrong, but I wouldn't underestimate John Delaney as a candidate.
I wouldn't either. I've got a cousin and several family members that live in Portland, Oregon, that his family that lives out there, and his wife, that they like Delaney. And out of the clear blue sky, they had met him in Iowa.
Yeah.
And they liked him.
All right. Up next on the flip side, our county is considering larger than expected tax rate hikes. We'll have that story when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back. So Washington County is considering a larger than expected tax rate hike. Ron, what can you tell us about the proposed hike?
First of all, it isn't really larger now. Now there is no property tax hike in the plan.
Okay.
Since that had to be, in place by now, it's not. So now they're going from a 2.8% on your income tax to then it was to 3.0. Now they're going to a public hearing in June 4th, I think it is, for a 3.2%, because Court Meidelschmidt says then a disparity grant will kick in. Currently, there's a disparity grant based on the 2.8% of about $2 million. If you go to 3.0%, it's like $4.1 million. But if you take that grant the whole way out to 3.2%, we will be getting a 6% disparity grant, or well over $6 million. It's a $6 million disparity grant.
What does it cost the citizen in Washington County, the average citizen?
If you go to 3.2, I think the average will be $204.
Okay, or an extra
a year. But to me, it's the worst idea that I've ever seen commissioners come up with.
Okay,
you do not fund a budget with a grant. The same way that happened with the highway user revenue was a grant, and you see how we've been complaining about grants in the cities and the county, complaining you do not fund an operating budget with grant money. I think it's a foolish idea. I think it can jeopardize your AA plus bond rating, because it's revenue. If you do have a problem, there's not a problem now. You may have a spending problem. I don't know that there's another problem. But if there comes a bad time, you want to have leverage on your income tax that you can go to the max, where now we can't. So I don't like it at all.
Why can't we go? I mean, if we're raising the income tax, that's going to bring in more money in and by itself without the grant.
You don't have that as a fallback position when there's a problem. If there was we had a problem back when Fairchild closed. Unemployment rate went to 18%. Okay? That's what it was, 18%. Your interest on money then was 12 to 16%. That was a problem, and 10,000 people lost their jobs. That was a problem. Today, you don't have a problem out there that you've got to max out what you're going to take your income tax rate to at 3. I think it's a bad move.
So you think that they shouldn't take it to 3.2%?
Absolutely not.
What do you think they should do as an alternative funding method?
They should have gone with the plan that they did have.
Which was to raise the property tax.
3%, which is 3% in the property tax.
Okay.
And then you talk about, now they're talking 3% for, 3% on your water and sewer bill. Well, for those of us that pay large bills because of where we live, the district that we live in, our bills go up. That's okay. I'm willing to pay that. But this particular proposal that's just been outlined in the last week, that is going to public hearing, I think is a poor decision on the county commissioners.
Henry, you've been quiet. That's only because Ron's been talking a lot. What are your thoughts?
I mean, Ron has the experience of being a past county commissioner. One, I don't like the fact that, to incentivize to raise our taxes in order to get a grant. Grant's only temporary. It's not guaranteed that you're going to have it from 1 year to the next year. That's a bad thing.
But if somebody says, I'll give you $100,000 once, or I'll give you nothing ever, doesn't it behoove us to take the $100,000 once?
But I'm going to give you $100,000 once, but the caveat is I'm going to tax you an additional 0.4% for the rest of your life.
Do we have to do that?
Yes.
Yes.
Unless they lower it.
They have to prove that they are taking care of our community burden, and that's why we have to increase the tax rate by 0.4% or 0.2%, whichever one.
Whichever one you get.
Okay. So yes, we're saying, oh, it's a $200 burden upon the taxpayers in our community. Well, $200 spreads out and goes an awful long way. Ron's point was, well, we don't have that to fall back on. What if we really do get into serious financial situation somewhere down the road that $200 per citizen within this county is going to make the difference between our county going bankrupt or not going bankrupt? That could come to pass. The other challenge that you have is, why did it take until the last week, when all the information has been floated around and we've known this issue for a while, to present the information? Why did we have to make a lot of panic decisions and not have it discussed more broadly in the community up until the last week?
I'm going to hear you answer that.
I don't know that I have an answer.
Okay.
My opinion is that it could be any number of reasons. It could be that we have a brand new Board of County Commissioners that are finding their way in this first session since they've been elected.
And it's the best course of action after the support from a community which is generally conservative and against having taxes raised. Your first time in to raise your tax rate by 0.2 to 0.4%?
I think that if they are doing this out of need for the community and not want to get reelected, I think they're acting prudently. If that's their goal.
But I mean, I'm throwing this out because there are a lot of things. If you said, well, listen, we need to raise property taxes to support issues that we have within our community. We need improvement on infrastructure. We need a better way for our fire and rescue services to operate within our community. We need to support.
Yeah, we've not touched the fire and rescue tax yet, have we?
No.
No.
With the 3.2%, that has nothing to do with.
That would be completely separate if it's ever broached. Am I in favor of any taxes? No. I think have we looked hard enough on how we can reduce our existing budget to fit within our current revenue? Have they looked hard enough to find a way to make that improvement?
What is the biggest budget item in the Washington County budget?
School board.
Right.
Well, Washington County Public Schools, not the school board.
Yeah.
Well, the school board goes and asks for it.
Yeah.
My point is, I mean, and that, as I understand it, to do what we need to do, there's a maintenance of effort thing which we are minimally meeting. So, is it fair to say that we agree that there's not much they can cut from that, even if they wanted to?
I think, well, they can't cut any from it, but I think now they're, based in this latest report of going to 3.2%, it's an extra $500,000 for capital. I want you to remember something. This is a check for a little more than $6 million. It's a disparity grant. If we go, and this is Commissioner Meidel-Schmidt's proposal, we're going to take this $6 million, $6.2 million from a disparity grant. If we go maximize our how much we can go on the income tax to 3.2%, you're going to get $6.2 million back. That's this year. What happens if next year, which is going to be a bad year in the state of Maryland, they've already told us it was going to be a bad year, and you lose it? The same as we lost highway user funds years ago. Again, it's a smoke and mirrors budget by some of the commissioners this year.
Okay. All right, last words?
I hope that, I hope across the board that even during the public hearing, people show up to speak against.
Well, I hope they show up to understand it. I'm not going to say, because quite frankly, I'm not sure what.
Well, they already showed up, and there wasn't that much outrage over the property tax increase.
Right.
I don't mind that.
But property tax is different than what we're talking about on an income tax.
Yeah, but they was taking the income tax to 3%.
Right.
Not to 3.2.
And they were raising the property tax, whatever it was.
5 cents.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, we'll see what happens. It's going to be an interesting ride over the next couple of weeks.
Yes.
Up next, stay with us after the break, Fast Five. Welcome to Fast Five, where our three panelists talk about 5 topics in 7 short minutes. Ron, there's a Prince George's County jail under fire for releasing MS-13 killers. despite having a detaining order from ICE. What do you think about that one?
It's false news.
Fake news.
It's fake news. First
me
of
why.
all, that those two people were not let loose. They were put into juvenile detention under a court order by a judge. There was no warrant for them by ICE.
But there was a detaining order.
The detaining order was that they let them go. They didn't let them go. They placed them in juvenile detention.
Okay.
Fake news.
Fake news. Henry?
Can't we just communicate? That's really, it boils down to, can't we communicate? Listen, when they went to move them from one location to another location, it should have immediately went across the ICE radar screen, hey, they're going over to here.
And that should have come out
And
of
there's
the
no more
judge's-
discussion. There's
that
no more
should have come
discussion.
out
The
of
judge should have actually mandated that occur.
You got it.
Okay.
Okay,
All right. That was easy.
next.
Pennsylvania school. Yearbook photo. The school decided to, or somebody in the school decided to blur a student's MAGA hat. So they took the MAGA words and just made it a plain old red hat. Henry, what say you?
I think it was an overly zealous yearbook
Editor?
editor who had access to Photoshop and decided to use the blur tool. You know, the school, I don't think the school was aware that this took place. The student didn't really know that it took place until the yearbook was published. He didn't know that picture was going to be in the yearbook. School board apologized. The family accepted the apology. Let's move forward.
Okay. Ron?
I totally agree. I liked it.
This is scary, Ron.
Well, but the school went purposefully to. They didn't agree with doing it.
Right.
I don't think it should have been done.
No, they didn't
either.
agree with doing it. In fact, they said it was a mistake.
Right. They said it was
Yeah.
a mistake. The good thing is the parents took it that way, and they worked together. It wasn't of I'm going to get you now, and I'm going to keep on.
But the media didn't let it go.
And that's their job.
Yeah. All right. Our own state of Maryland is going to become the second state in the United States to ban styrofoam containers. That happens next year. The governor didn't sign it, but he didn't veto it either. He let it become law absent his signature. Henry, what say you?
We will see the impact as it goes to hit us when we go to get our sodas. Of course, a lot of the fast food restaurants already have done away with the styrofoam. It's more the mom and pop shops picking up to-go containers, little styrofoam with your, to go home.
Your doggy bag.
Now, my doggy bag fits in a doggy bag, but normally I don't leave enough on the plate to worry with taking it home. But it's a simple things. It's going to be. Is there going to be a charge for us having a doggy bag now? Yeah, maybe a quarter, whatever. I mean, price of the container. What are the alternatives? I think actually, either Anne Arundel or Prince George's already had a ban on styrofoam containers, which really hasn't been highlighted on.
I think both of them.
Okay, so they've already had a ban in place. There are alternatives. It's going to be more expensive, but we're talking difference in cost of container, maybe 4 or 5 cents and up. So it's not.
It won't have near as much of an impact. What you're saying is it won't have near as much an impact as raising the minimum wage, right?
No. I think we're probably safe with that. The minimum wage, it will stifle the economy. The 4 cent on a styrofoam cup, I think we can live.
He who laughs last laughs best. We'll see who laughs last.
Okay. What say you on that one, Ron?
I believe that the styrofoam containers should be done away with as they're talking about.
There's a local fast, or not a fast food place, but there's a local convenience store. There's several of these throughout our community, and it has 3 letters with an ampersand in the middle. And when you buy the big tub o' chicken for your picnics, for your big picnic gatherings, they give it to you in one of those styrofoam coolers. I'm assuming that will be banned.
Well, that'll be banned, but they'll come up with something that's different. With I'm sure that it'll be a lined box with. I know if we get candy, my cousin sends candy to my mom, and the way it's all put together, it's you don't have anything to throw away.
Maybe they just put a deposit on the container that comes out in a regular red cooler, and now here's $2, bring it back, and you'll get your $2 back.
All right. First in nation drug price board to be enacted in Maryland. So this whole government control of pricing worked out real good in the 70s with gas. How's this one going to work out, Ron?
Refresh my memory just on how is this only going to take place for government employees? This isn't for everybody? This is only going to be for government employees?
Well, we talked several months ago that this was a government employee. I'm not sure if this expanded out into public mandate.
I don't think this is out into the public mandate.
No, I don't think it is either, now that you say that, yes.
And in order to do it, it's got to be followed up on, and they have to wait till 2022 to take a vote as to what they can do after they come up with new ideas on how they can cut the cost. I mean, it's something, it's giving a lot of people the opportunity to talk about and to come up with new ideas, but it doesn't get voted on till 2022 and wouldn't even be enacted to 2023, and then only to government employees.
Okay. Henry, what's that?
I'm kind of in Ron's ballpark. I thought we were talking about the mandate that they were trying to do for government unionized employees, and because that's what we had talked about previously on the show. I'm not aware that this expanded out into the public domain. I think that's where our health insurance companies need to get together and say, listen, this is what we're paying. You guys need to get your act together.
All right, back to our subject of Make America Great Again artwork. There is a Maryland artist whose art was banned from Facebook. Apparently, they took the MAGA logo or something like MAGA logo and created a swastika out of it. Ron, what do you say on that one?
It's a good time for the MAGA hat, Make America Great Again. You've got an election coming up, so I guess that'll fit right in with
the swastika?
Several. No, not the swastika. That's wrong. But again, you're going to come back with a Confederate flag, the swastika. Isn't that part of history? So for the people that support the Confederate flag, you got the swastika. It's part of history. So what's the beef?
Well, I don't think. I think.
What?
I think.
What's the difference?
Well, the difference is you are bringing it forward and using it as a current symbol. You
don't use a Confederate flag as a symbol? I see them every day.
We've not changed the way the Confederate flag looked, have we? Have we done
There's
that?
all kind of variations of it.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. But the other reality is, relative specifically to the Confederate flag and the swastika, I was always told that the best way to keep from repeating bad history is to learn about it. So all of
So then you agree on leaving it there, the swastika?
No, I think the swastika, as represented as part of a MAGA logo, is wrong. I think learning about what a swastika stands for and understanding the just unbelievable travesty that occurred as a result of that period in our time is worth learning about.
Nationalism.
As well as learning about what happened in the Confederate days.
We're back to Make America Great Again.
I think that's a great idea.
Okay, so then let it out there, both of them.
Excellent. Just don't do the MAGA with it. You're mixing metaphors, Ron.
No, you are. Okay.
All right, coming up next, we're back in 3 minutes, and we're going to talk about thumbs up, thumbs down. Stay with us. Welcome to Thumbs Up, Thumbs Down, where our panelists talk about the good news and the bad news from their perspective this week. Henry, what say you?
Well, one, we just went through Memorial Day celebrations. My immediate family, I've had no members that served, no members that lost their lives. But, I'm grateful for those that sacrificed their life for us being able to sit here and talk tonight, and, just for the American society that we're keeping America great under President Trump for Ron's benefit. Thank you for the family sacrifices, the people who are willing to put their life on the line for us to be able to talk about things and make this nation a great nation. And on the inverse side of it is, I've been exposed to some individuals recently who don't appreciate what they have in this country. Oh, well, why am I celebrating Memorial Day? Okay, you have the ability to voice against it. that people sacrifice their lives for that too. So, you know, if you don't like what America is, you are free to leave this country. I hear Canada's taking applications right now. I'm sure Germany's more than willing to open their borders for you. And I'll leave it at that.
Ron?
I'm going to give my thumbs up that I've talked about many times in the last 10 months, and that's to the Maryland Theater and the development that's taking place. The forming of the 3 arches is now very visible. There will be some major stone structures or concrete structures brought in tomorrow morning at the theater, and that project is coming along for the October the 11th, 4:30 in the afternoon ribbon cutting ceremony by Governor Hogan, and it's something I've waited a long, long time to see.
Excellent. My thumbs up and thumbs down are actually around the same event. My thumbs down, I'm going to give that one first, is the fact that I believe it was in Ohio, there was a KKK rally. The Ku Klux Klan held an official rally in Ohio, and I guess the thumbs down is I still, for the life of me, don't understand why anybody would involve themselves with that type of organization. My thumbs up, though, is the fact that guess how many people showed up? 6. And while I would have loved it had it been 0, I think the fact that 6 people showed up to this rally speaks volumes about where our country is. And I know we've still got racial issues, but I think it speaks volumes about where we're going as a country in terms of addressing some of those issues. So that's my thumbs up and thumbs down for the week.